Good afternoon, everyone. How are we all? Hope you're all well. Very quickly before we get started, there's another on the DAZN, or on DAZN if you've got it, or on the DAZN YouTube channel. There's another sit down hosted by Ade Oladipo with Frank and Eddie, and this is probably the third or fourth televised sort of sit down I've had together now, but it's still really odd. And the more you see them sat down together. And you shouldn't be surprised. They're both boxing promoters. They're both businessmen, and they both know their boxing. So I always said that they've got way more in common than they have in kind of conflict, if you like. But it's just great to see them sit down because they're aligned on so many issues, and you can see now that that relationship really is building. On the first few sort of sit downs they've done together, and the first few televised things they've done together, it was clear that Frank came across to me anyway, like, not fully comfortable with it. But the more and more they do these things, and the more and more time they spend together and conversing, even Frank looks a little more comfortable with it now and looks always happy to be there. But yeah, go check it out. It's a nice little watch and quite informative. I just watched Ben Shalom on TalkSport Boxing, and they tackled the subject of VAR in boxing, and I think Suleiman at the WBC has mentioned it as well. Fancy that, Suleiman trying to clean the game up, make it more credible. Shocks do happen, don't they? But VAR in boxing. I mean, it's weird, isn't it? Because for me, you could there are things you could do with a current judging and scoring system to make it more, what's the word? To make it make it a more reliable system. You know, we could sit the judges on the same side of the ring for a start, and the organisations could introduce a standardised pay scale for judges, because a lot of the so-called, and we've discussed this before, it's a well-trodden subject, but a lot of the so-called fraudulent judging, should we say, is done in the way that a lot of judges will want to keep a larger promotional company happy with their performance to get future employment on those shows. But there are a lot of things, like I say, put the judges on the same side of the ring. You could put screens in between them to make sure their cards are independent, and a standardised pay scale. So it wasn't more favourable to give a favourable decision for a certain or promotional outfit. But I'm told by friends of mine that follow football that even in football, VAR gets it wrong. So, and I think boxing is such a different sport. Combat sports are so different to any others in the way that fights are constructed and the way the action works and flows in boxing. I think it needed a lot of thinking over before that was introduced. But could it make it any worse than it is at current? Probably not. Could it? I don't know. The other thing is to do that, and I don't agree with doing it just at high-level world, high-profile world title fights. I think you need to do it across the board to make it fair, but there's got to be a substantial element of cost involved. And boxing isn't a sport where people like to invest money freely, is it? So let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you think about that. VAR in boxing, good thing, needs a lot of thinking about. Let me know in the comments. I'm sure it's a hot topic for discussion. LOZZ, Punch Out TV. Shout out to LOZZ, top bloke, top channel. Done a video last night about Joe Joyce, and the fact that Joe Joyce now seems to be a bit of a forgotten man by Queensbury, because he's now fighting Cash Ali at a leisure centre, I believe. And he talked about the fact that Joe Joyce is now sort of the forgotten man, and Queensbury don't seem to be showing much interest in the rest of his career. And this is one of the things when people talk about boxing as a cutthroat sport and what a hard sport it is, we don't just talk about the fighting. It's a hard sport because, as now with Joe Joyce, who was riding the crest of a wave, talked about, as being a big player in the heavyweight division, and now on the back of the two losses to Zhilei Zhang. And I always, I said this for quite a while, I always found Joe Joyce an accident waiting to happen because of his attributes, which were essentially getting hit. But nonetheless, I always like Joe Joyce. He's a lovely guy, truly lovely guy, isn't he? And you always wish well for Joe Joyce. But this is the fact in boxing and with promoters, that as a promoter, you're only going to invest money into assets that are going to give you a favourable return, aren't they? Each fighter is an asset and an investment. And once the legs seem to have gone an investment and the return on that is now going to be limited, which I believe, unfortunately for Joe Joyce, he's now lost. For me, I believe we've seen Joe Joyce's level, which is sort of fringe world title level, and at his age, I'm sure Frank and Queensberry look at that now as not an asset that they really want to sink a lot of money into at this point. If he goes and beats Cass Ali and then goes on to be a sort of a world championship level heavyweight, it may change. But at this point, sort of all the cards are now dealt against Joe Joyce, in effect, aren't they? And Queensberry are not really going to outlay as much money as they did previously in Joe Joyce, because as an asset, he's just not worth it at this point anymore. So I think a lot of people look over that as when we talk about boxing as a hard sport, it's a cruel sport in that way, because at one point you can be up there riding the crest of a wave, you can be talked about as a fringe level world title prospect and be talked about fighting other top name contenders and heavyweights, and on the back of 2 losses you're almost at the bottom of the pile. So it can be cruel in that way. So yeah, Joe Joyce, you feel for him because he's a lovely fella, ain't he? But at this point, Queensberry are not going to treat him as the asset they did previously. And there was an argument for saying they always it looked like Queensberry treated Dubois as more of an asset, and possibly because of his age, he kind of was. So yeah, another topic of discussion. One more thing I want to talk about, and this is slightly off subject, but LOZZ, and now listen, the guys I watch on YouTube, other than the big major channels, the smaller channels I watch them because they have integrity and they have honesty and they look at things objectively and they're honest in their opinions. And listen, what I'm going to talk about is a video that LOZZ made, and it was a video about the photos about Fury's cut. Now, LOZZ made a video and he questioned the validity of them because one of the photos, the cut was on the other eye. Now, and I this sprung out to me because in a few of my earlier videos, a few of the comments remarked that they were inverted, everything was kind of back to front. So because of that, this sort of stuck in my mind. And I said to LOZZ, I think the possibility there is, LOZZ, that this photo maybe was taken on a front-facing camera and the picture's inverted, given that the look of being on the other eye. And that's the only reason it stuck out to me, because it happened to me in some of my videos. Now, this is going to be a news flash, right? But us as creators, and we do this for the love of the sport, and we do it to create an environment where like-minded boxing fans can disagree respectfully. We can have, respectful conversations. We don't always have to agree. Now, listen, LOZZ got that one wrong. And here's another news flash. I get a lot wrong. I get a lot more wrong in my videos than LOZZ does in his. And even Joe Stunner made a video last week, a couple of weeks ago, about Tyson Fury. Now, you can disagree with us and you can pull us when we get it wrong, because we'll get it wrong. We're humans. Humans aren't an exact science. So we're going to make mistakes. But as LOZZ did, and I know Joe did, and I know I have, when you leave rude comments trying to belittle us and stuff like that, listen, when you leave those comments, you're leaving those comments because you've watched our video, so you've given us a watch. So you carry on with the hateful, disrespectful comments trying to belittle us all. Quite frankly, we don't care. But listen, I'll tell you this, all the fools that left disrespectful comments to LOZZ, and like I say, LOZZ is one of the most stand-up guys I know. He's got the most integrity and he's honest. And I respect LOZZ a massive amount, as I do Joe Stunner. So LOZZ holding his hands up and said, I made a mistake, got that wrong, didn't even realise about the camera thing, as I would have never thought of had it not been happening in some of my videos. But when you're disrespectful behind a nameless, faceless profile, you don't make me or LOZZ or Joe Stunner look stupid. You make yourself look a fool. You make yourself look like a product of maybe not great upbringing. Because if you're like that and disrespectful behind a nameless, faithless profile, to me that says something about your character. And I'll tell you another thing, all the fools that left disrespectful comments to LOZZ on that video, you ain't saying nothing to his face in the street, regardless of what you're going to say on a comment of this video that you would. If you saw LOZZ in the street, you'd shake his hand and say, "I'll watch your channel," because you wouldn't say shit to his face. So listen, like I said, we do this out of the love of the sport, and we're going to get it wrong sometimes. To give shit and disrespectful and rude comments and try and belittle people in the comments doesn't reflect on us. Newsflash. There are way more people watch our videos than read your comments. Trust. All right? So in future, pull us up when we're wrong, because we will make mistakes. We're human. We're not an exact science. We're going to get it wrong sometime. And we're happy to be told we've got it wrong. Just do it with a little respect. Just show a little respect. Do it in a nice way. Do it in a constructive way. That's how people build and grow. Anyway, I diverted a bit. Little video today. That's it. I'm out. Peace. See you all soon.